So we don't like to approach any topic from a lens of fear, but we would be negligent if we didn't address the elephant in the room in today's economic times. Tariffs, economic uncertainty, fears of recession. And so now it begs the question, where does IT fit into that landscape? Does it create a position of even greater strength than we've seen over the years with automation and AI? Or does it become something that sits on the sideline, like all the piles of cash that these businesses have? Because if it's one thing that businesses do not like, it's uncertainty. Interest rates are high, they know how to handle that. Interest rates are low, they got a plan for that. But what they do not like is uncertainty. We're going to dive into this topic. Don't go anywhere. So we've had a series of events that kind of had the same kind of theme, and it felt like this was a topic worth pushing here. Tom, you were at a user group. People were asking how business was. When you gave the answer, it was kind of a little bit of a shock. We're seeing a lot of folks and partners and groups in our industry that are time and material focused, starting to feel the pressure of these recessionary fears and tariff uncertainty. So that kind of makes you pause and think. But then you look at a model such as the fractional CIO space that we're in, we don't see that as necessarily an issue or a cause for concern. But let's open up this topic. Let's get it going.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It was a good conversation. It was interesting. It made me think. I just, it's a typical catching up with a colleague. I hadn't seen them for a little bit, and they said, how's business? We were a little slow in the fourth quarter. First quarter started out slow, but in, just the last 4 weeks or so, we've really seen a lot of commitments. We've had a lot of new customers that we've been talking with. And so anyway, I'm sharing this, and they were a little surprised. They're like, wow, we'd have thought you guys would have got cut first. Usually they cut the contractors first. And I said, guys, we're not actually a contractor. We're not an electrician roaming around the building that you can maybe use or maybe not use. We're your strategic senior level IT seat at the table. And so, Tony, as you said, we don't see people eliminating a CIO any more than we see them eliminating a CFO. Technology's everywhere. And so anyway, it was an interesting conversation, but I was surprised that they were surprised that our business was doing as well as it was.
So there's 2 points then for Craig that you draw out. One is kind of a fallacy, frustration for IT folks that somehow we're a line you cut out, like you said. And it sounds ridiculous to say this, but when times are tough, are you letting the CFO go? How about your head of operations? It's a ridiculous concept, and that applies to IT as well, or should apply, considering the increasing technology-driven area of every corner of an operation. This is a critical function. That's fallacy one. Fallacy two is that we are a contractor. We're the first thing you strike out. We are an extension. Tom, you say it really well, that we wear the customer's jersey. When I'm representing our clients, that email signature says so, and we are very much a part of their team.
See, Billy Idol gets it. I don't know why she doesn't get it.
We've been saying this for a while. We're finally here. Cost center versus strategic asset. We're an asset, and we're an officer of the company. The O in VCIO is officer of the company. We act as a extension of that executive team. The hourly consultants, yeah, I could see that. Having a little, getting a second eye on that and potentially slimming that down a little bit. And I just don't see, with our model, in any, fractional CFO, call whatever fractional it is, it's you get more variation and you minimize risk because you don't have somebody that's single-minded. And if you take us that are covering each other's blind spots, and whether it's ERP, technology, security, training, whatever, AI adoption, it's just so important to have technology breadth now versus singular focused IT, because everybody needs a CIO, they just can't afford it.
And we see light bulbs go off all the time with our current clients. They may hear the messaging in the beginning when we start to engage, but until they've experienced it, it becomes like so one of my clients recently came back to us for a big development project, and we have a broad application development arm of our company. And so we're going through the process and the discovery and getting a proposal. And it's like, well, all right, so what's your adder? I'm like, there is no adder. We're your CIO. Like, leverage us the best way you can. You have an entire team behind you, and it's something you can budget for. Your fee's not increasing. Like, these are moments, right? But this is part of the value. Just think of the army behind this offering, and it's something you can budget for. It's consistent service, and it's again, it's a fraction of the cost that you would typically pay if you were to fully insource that function.
And it's consistent care too. Look at what we just did. We mandated all of our clients go through an AI adoption at an executive level, right? I mean, we're not waiting for them to tell us. We're saying, guys, we have to get you started on this path. We have to get you exposed to this. And it's at executive level, and it's just things that we're looking at the business plan, we're looking at the business strategy, and we're stitching a technology roadmap to it. Man, that is the way things should work, period.
You get back to the uncertainty and who sort of doubles down and who is retrenching. And at least throughout my career, and, Craig, you and I have been step for step just about, when things got a little bumpy and post.com, we saw the companies that are taking a long view take that opportunity to invest because they had the time to focus on the project, and and they were well run. They had some dry powder, so they said, okay, we're going to do it. We saw companies, when everything fell off a cliff in 2007, 2008, it's really tough, right? I mean, there was 3 solid years there anyway, right? Where it was touch and go, 2007 through 2009. But the well-run companies, what's Warren Buffett say? You don't know who's swimming naked till the tide goes out, right? But the folks that had their suits on, they stood. They took the time to invest, and those are the folks that are also recognizing, as Craig said, look, they're not GM, they're not 3M. They don't necessarily want a full-time CIO. Many can't afford a full-time CIO, but they can get senior level leadership, from a fractional group.
And that's where, we can have our cake and eat it too. Because not only is there a level of affordability that just can't match fully insourcing and loading up that individual, it's also, again, that breadth of team for that fixed fee that gives you in good times and bad, especially when times are tough. This isn't a belt to tighten. It's already tight. But you're having the benefit of all these folks and individuals in the organization providing value. Like, Craig, I like when you said, we're bringing Copilot and AI training to the C-suite. Sometimes those are uncomfortable conversations because, there's that pessimism or I don't need this. And, then they get that exposure and training, and you kind of help walk them through it, and the value light bulb goes off.
Craig says it best, and he alluded to it earlier, but he calls it the Cleveland Clinic model. And, the number of times we collaborate relative to a case, right? We are working, one of our clients is we're doing a project, and, maybe it's network security. Now, I have passable knowledge, but, Tony, you're flat out expert. Greg, you're pretty solid yourself, right? So I'm not going to figure that stuff out. I'm going to tap you in, and you're going to do that part of the work, right? If it's mentoring or whatever we're doing, I mean, there's a broad, anybody who can sit in a seat and tells you they're a leader across the IT spectrum. Yeah, nope. It's that is a big topic.
Tom, when you said what Buffett said, the fixed fee and the lean implementations, they know what they're doing. They got the model down, right? So there isn't a fear factor. It's like, this is what we do. We know how much money we're going to make. we have a implementation that we know that is going to work, provided you follow these rails, right? And again, there's variations to everything, but I just see that change in the whole consulting world, especially with AI, because AI can do a lot of what the hourly people are doing, especially, and I mean this with all respect, the junior people that are just getting experience and exposure. That's good. There's going to be a hit there because AI can cover that. Now, true consultative, like you just did, Tom, at one of our clients went in there and took out serialization on the incoming, and, because it was bottlenecking everything and the value wasn't there. That true consultative nature is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some math around this, right? I mean, fixed fee, fixed fee inherently means I don't mean to make this a win or lose scenario, but for ease of discussion, there's going to be months you win. There's going to be months you lose, right? It's no different than having a fire insurance policy. Now, we're a little different in that value prop, but this is where the time and material organizations do have some concern when there is economic uncertainty. You don't know what any given moment or any given scenario that arises is going to cost, and that can get really expensive really quick. That's the calm that a fixed fee model brings. Obviously, the value is there times a factor of 10, but I do like that sense of calm and predictability that comes with our model.
Again, it's back to your uncertainty point, Tony. So what do people not like? Uncertainty. When everybody wants to talk about ROI, but if it's a billable hour model, you don't really know what the I is. You have an approximation of what the I is. If you help a business owner make a decision with a number they can rely on, your odds are going to go up.
The worst thing that you can ever want to put someone in the position of is thinking twice before picking up the phone.
Yeah.
So our day doesn't end at 5. Our day doesn't end at hour 40 in a given month. I mean, we're an extension of the team. So if someone's calling after hours, someone's calling in hours, that's a phone call you take without any thought, because we're an employee of yours. So when you think about the collection of services that a fractional organization like ours offers, there's an easy list, because you think of traditional IT and all the boxes to check to keep an organization running. But what makes us different is our focus on the whole person. It's not that IT touches a subset of the organization. It touches all the organizations, from the boardroom to the C-suite, down to the folks on the floor. So it's very important to focus on the soft side. So we'll get into some of the other services like project management. If you're rolling out an ERP system, you need that internal stakeholder, that person who can block and tackle and herd the cats, so to speak. But there's also a big emphasis on the human side. So Craig, let's talk about that mentorship piece that we get into, because we're not trying to build a corner or create an organization or a mafia setting that keeps us there for life. If we have an opportunity to mentor and build up a team, and that person or individuals become the next C-suite, that's a win.
That's an important aspect of it, what we do, because, you look at traditional IT, training tracks, career models, whatever, they're either hardware, they're developers, and no one's helping build them to the next level for what the company needs and what's good for them, right? So if we have it's hard to see 3 years out anymore, but we kind of know where things are going a couple of years. But if we mentor them up on soft skills, leadership, communications, active listening, all the stuff that helps them communicate better with everybody in the organization, because before IT could sit in a back room and just sit there. The interaction and the impact on culture now is huge. And if they don't have that ability to listen, the ability to hear, the ability to pause, the ability to have white space, with executives, those are equally as important as getting them technically trained up for the Azures, for the Microsoft Fabrics, for the, the security, all that stuff. And I don't, people usually, when they say I need a CIO, they're not typically thinking about building the next level down also, because then you got strength, right? And again, and I think we said it before, IT has a huge culture impact now. The people, not just IT as IT, but IT as you're delivering it, as you're rolling it out, as you're communicating with the C-suite, all the way down to the people doing the work. They care.
Craig, you were recently working with a client, and you were taking the person we're mentoring there through some financial literacy training. Can you talk about that a little bit?
We helped recruit this person to help out with the Business Central implementation, but he has a strong development background, which is what I really wanted, and a strong IT, security, network, infrastructure background. But he didn't have accounting, right? He just didn't. And right now, if I looked at hiring somebody that had accounting or had some strong dev skills, I wanted to go with strong dev skills. But we had some discussion around his career map and what he should be learning. And one of them was Accounting 101, debits, credits, GL, AP, AR, because once you arm that type of person with the knowledge of accounting basics, what runs a business, what makes a business profitable, then they start thinking differently. The dashboards that he's thinking about now are really cool because he's getting the basics. The other thing to think about in the mentoring aspect is we want these people to grow.
Think about how different it is from years ago. So our focus for mentoring up IT is to focus on areas outside of IT.
Yeah.
Because we're building business people, business leaders. Anytime that there's a recruitment effort, whether we handle it or we work with a company's recruiter, I think I speak for all of us. The tech side that's the table stakes. It's assumed. So how are they going to be at a happy hour with folks from the organization? How are they going to interact with a department or a room full of people of different and varying skill level? Can they adapt to the people in the room? These are the things that we are intently focused on.
And it's just not the junior guys either. some of these senior IT directors, we've done it before, mentoring up an IT director to take the CIO role, right? And then we say, hey, tap in, you're ready. And then we'll just do some quarterly checkups and make sure nothing is veering off track or the business strategy is being interpreted right. There's as people hit there, I don't think, again, blind spots, if you're a sole CIO at a company and you don't have any kind of coach, mentor, or peer group, it's a danger for yourself, and I think it's something to keep top of mind.
And so think about MSPs, think about these firms that are sort of doing CIO service. Really, they're MSPs. That's what they're doing. They're trying to manage your network and get your Microsoft licensing. And that's a great model. We're CIOs. It's all we do. And as we've said a couple of times, we're wearing your jersey. So we work for you, and we represent, and in most cases, save many of our clients pretty significant dollars when we get in to do that initial review and take a look at what they're spending and where they're spending it. We don't make more money selling you more stuff. We have one price, and then we work for you.
We've been on MSP sites, and we engage with several managed service providers to help ensure that the security and infrastructure services for a particular organization. And these providers offer their version of VCIO services, and they come in really low price. So what's the difference here?
That's a great question. We know VCIOs have been around forever in the MSP market, right? And they're not really CIOs. They're CIOs in the IT realm, like network infrastructure, right? Security, servers. Some of you push back on cloud, all the hardware associated with, access points, fiber, all that stuff. That's their playground, but no one in any of these MSPs are acting like a true CIO because they're not thinking about the business, the profitability, the automation, the BI, the AI. the layers, from training, security, all the way up through infrastructures is where they played. And the downside is they usually have fixed stacks. Their offering is their offering, right? Good or bad, it's that. Now, where we come in, it's like we just did. We said, okay, you guys want Cisco, we want Ubiquity. Well, we don't do Ubiquity. Well, it's a third of the cost. We're going to do Ubiquity, right? And there's no fault tolerant. Well, I'm going to buy an extra switch and an extra AP and have it on the shelf. That's my fix and game. But they don't think that way. So then you get into above what they traditionally did or do is, get into the data, get into the ERP, get into the CRM, get into the workflow, get into the AI, the BI, all the continuous improvement stuff that is business-oriented technology. And MSPs do not play in that space, and they don't have that experience, especially when you get into the ERP space and CRM. We know CRMs are double-edged sword, right? 60% failure rate if you're not talking to the right people, getting salespeople on board for full adoption, and then minimizing the risk of salespeople owning all the data, right? And it just, that kind of stuff is way different than what you see on a offering from an MSP.
Fresh. Vinny, I got your peppers and onions, salami, prosciutto, a lot of cheese.
Come on. What else?
And not to mention the mentoring and the team building and covering the blind spots of the CEO. We go talk to the CEO and say, hey, you're not thinking about this right. We have to bridge the technology explanation, definition, why it's important to the C-suite, right? It's not like he says the business has got to go that way, but we can help change priorities based on what we can do with technology. And that's when you get business strategy from the C-suite and technology married together, it will change priorities and it'll accelerate projects and accelerate profitability, which is really something we're keeping top of mind now.
And we all come from the business side of the world, not the technology side of the world playing in the business side of the world. I think that's an important distinction. And we're technology agnostic. We're solution agnostic. That's one thing that I've seen, and even I'm guilty of it too. Like when I have a partner in or an MSP in and I'm getting a proposal or for a solution, it's hard not to go to, well, yeah, because this is what you offer, But you don't offer choices C, D, E, and F. You just know A and B, right? We know the whole alphabet. I mean that, and we're not tied to any. We want the right tool for the job. And then I think about Tom. Tom, how many days of the year are you a road warrior?
It varies, but between 150 and 200 each year.
And think about how many shows, trade shows, Microsoft shows, just industry shows in general, user groups that you're in front of. I mean, you're a giant sponge when it comes to what's out there in the market.
Yeah, I think that's the importance with the relationship with Microsoft in particular, but then the partner channel in general, right? These shows give you vast exposure to a lot of different options. And then you also interface with hundreds of other users. And so you see different use cases that, give us ideas for future.
Well, and you look at the conference we went to last year in Denver, the Microsoft user conference. I saved that one client like $60,000 just because we were going to integrate BC with CRM, or with the CRM marketing side, the customer insight journeys, now it's called. And that one class I went to, Microsoft just released that built-in Business Central to CRM connector. You do the math, hey, we need some CRM licenses, some add-ons, no brainer. But that one was like a $60,000 savings with no maintenance anymore, with no breakage, right? It's just, those things are huge. And I could have searched for that, asked AI for that. I don't think it would have came up unless I was sitting in that classroom.
The other thing that people get value from is our network, right? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of consultants out there. How do you know the good from the bad? Well, we've been doing this a long time. We know the good ones. Again, Craig, we're saving them thousands of dollars every year ongoing, and somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in initial development. I mean, that's a big number.
And we're not afraid to cause a little bit of waves. You know, I think it further validates the model because we're not tied to, you know, a certain technology offering. And sometimes, because again, remember, we're wearing the customer jersey, tends to be some confusion around that in the outsourced provider space. It's like, hey, you know, we've had to make tough decisions with existing partners or existing solution providers in a customer's environment. And we get looked at sometimes unfavorably for making a switch like that. Not from the customer side, because we represent the customer. But again, that further validates that, look, we are making sure that the right tool and the right community is part of our organization, meaning the customer's organization. And that can be love-hate sometimes.
Well, we have that independence factor. Again, it sounds like we're selling a house, but it's not. It's just like you don't want to be trapped with any partner. You know, you want to have a fair relationship. Tom says it well, fair-minded people with doing business together, right? It's just like, if they're not going to bend and twist to what we need, you know, and normally, and I hate it, a lot of the MSPs out there, they just have their model and they don't bend too much, right? And things are just moving too fast. And we still got to worry about security. You know, you got to protect the house while you're building the second edition, right? You know, it's just, you got to keep things moving.
And part of that angst in the bending comment you made is back to people who don't understand our role. Like, once we're engaged with a client, we are the client. We are the customer. And so treat this relationship and conversation like you would if this was, you know, someone who would be a traditional employee of said organization. It's a bit of a rewiring that we have to help educate on.
Business strategy, people, tech, those three legs are very, very powerful.
So look, we see this position as critical for any business, whether you're going through tough times, uncertain times, or you're prosperous. No different than how you look at your head of finance, your head of operations. You're not going to let those individuals go. It's the lifeblood of the organization. We see executive IT leadership and guidance as equally important. We bring a sense of calm and predictability to your organization at a fraction of the cost. And you're getting an entire team. When you pick up the phone and we answer that call, that meter's not running. There's something about time and material billing models that do give a sense of unease. We crash through those barriers. It's not what we do. We are an extension of your team. We got your back. Thanks again for a great conversation, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, bud.
All right, so then I'll cut in yours.
Yep.
And then Tom, maybe tee up the abstracts thing again
Sure.
for Craig to weigh in on.
Tee up the person for me, and then I'll take it.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to lead? Okay. All right.
Yep. It's your giant sponge when it comes to what's out there in the market. You know, we're here. I mean,
that's all, folks.
no.
I think that's
maybe
the
close that
importance
point.
Let's hang on. If you want to stop it, then we can get caught up on a few other things real quick.
All right, let's do a. I usually come back and record a closing comment so I don't stroke out on you guys. But let's do the group wave. So I'm going to start with thanks again, and then okay. I mean, I think we got it. Anything else that we need to cover, or is that good?
I don't think so.